You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. We're partnered with BetMGM. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code PHNX. There's a few different offers depending on where you live. But for our AZ audience, you will get up to $100 in bonus bets on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code PHNX. Place a pregame moneyline wager in the amount of at least $10 on any market at standard odds price. You will receive $10 in bonus bets instantly, regardless of the outcome of your wager. Just make sure you use bonus code PHNX when you sign up. Plus, join us at the BetMGM Sportsbook at State Farm Stadium for all Suns away games, our feature foods and drink specials, PHNX giveaways, and PHNX live shows. Join us by grabbing your free ticket in the show notes. Now check out the full notes in the link in the description. Now let's hear the disclaimer from Shane.
Disclaimer, 21 plus to wager. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in Washington, D.C., Mississippi, Nevada, New York, and Ontario. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369, New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, Arizona. 1-800-522-4700, Kansas, Nevada. 1-800-327-5050, Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF, Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help, Michigan.
All right, now that we paid the bills, joined by the great Ryan Hansen, has the best job in the world. Besides getting to travel, gets to call U of A games, has dropped a three-pointer on Reggie Geary in practice before. You name it, Rhino's done it. How you doing, my guy?
Luke, good to see you, brother. You're always got the energy, and I love talking with you about Arizona basketball. You know that.
Let's get started here. So Tommy Lloyd in his first two seasons here has won the most games in college basketball history by a couple games. Let me ask you this, and again, we'll talk tournament and all that. What has surprised you when looking back at the first 2 years of Tommy Lloyd? What does Rhino think about what Tommy Lloyd has brought to the table, and maybe something surprised you a little bit?
I would say that the best thing about what Tommy's brought is I really feel like Arizona basketball is back. I know fans may say that the tournament run, and we'll talk about that, right, doesn't equate to what our expectations were, what we want them to be long term. There's no doubt. We'll dig into that. But when you look at where Arizona basketball was really and truly after the FBI hit, and everything kind of started to unravel. COVID didn't help us because I think the Nico Mannion year, we had some things rolling, but let's get real. That probably was not a Final Four group looking at how they played all season long. So relatively speaking, Arizona was not in the mix when you talked about top 25 teams. Tommy Lloyd got us back quickly, got us back with a bang. And the style of play I love, I think the fan base loves, I think long-term will be huge for Arizona and is what we all want it to be from a branding standpoint. The next step has to be taken now. So I personally couldn't be any happier. Maybe the order of how far we went in the tournament has gotten everybody's expectations upside down. I would say if Arizona had gone to the first round a year ago, lost in the first round, and then went to the Sweet 16 in year two, we would be feeling we're building, we're there, Arizona's hot. Because it was reversed, now we kind of have this letdown of a year this year when, for all intents and purposes, the season, when you look at the old famous phrase in college basketball, the body of work, Tommy put together probably an exceptional coaching job, and maybe year two for the body of work was a better coaching job than even year one.
Well, I would totally second that. As a matter of fact, I would say, and Rhino, you've lived U of A basketball up close. The great teams generally have NBA players. And this was a great coaching performance by Tommy Lloyd, because while there's a ton of really good players on this past year's team, there's not the one guy that just jumps out at you. The Ben Mathurin said he's an NBA guy. There's not the Jared Bayless that comes in. He's an NBA guy. There are some guys that could play in the league, but I thought going into the year that I felt the talent on the team was somewhere around 17 to 22, somewhere in there. And the fact that they got a number 2 seed on top of what they did the previous year, from an X's and O's perspective, from a style perspective, there shouldn't be any questions about what Tommy Lloyd can do as a head coach.
No, he's proven that. And I think and when we analyze and micro analyze some of the games, and maybe, no coach is perfect. Out of Tommy's own mouth, he knows, maybe you look back on this year and he learns a couple of things, right? So the brand is solid. The style of play is outstanding. The X's and O's, and I believe the player development, which is something that Tommy is very good at, is top notch. And that will pay dividends into the future. When you look at a couple of the things that maybe he learned, okay, was the bench utilized and grown as well as it should have? Was that going to be the difference maker against Princeton or not? I don't know. Maybe somebody would have hit a shot or something that could have made a difference. But maybe he looks at that end of game scenario with the ASU debacle. He's going to learn from that. Every coach has one of those games that goes awry at the end of the game and a Hail Mary shot goes in. Maybe not as crazy as that one was, but chalk that one up. Right. Tommy's got the record for most wins in 2 years. He also has a game that he knows he wants back. Maybe some other overthinking strategies that he deployed, and he admitted that in some games. Maybe we overthought how we defended UCLA in game 1 at Poly, and we really tried to mimic, or we really tried to manage the game too tightly. He's learning from those things and has admitted that. So there's some growth for sure for him. But the key pillars that you mentioned, brand, style, player development, X's and O's, I feel very confident as Tommy Lloyd's basketball coaching staff is well-rounded. What
I like too about it, and this is kind of piggyback on your point, what he admits that he doesn't know everything. I mean, you look at it, look at a guy like Lute Olson. And again, this has been told a million times. Lute Olson went to a Final Four at Iowa, 88, obviously. And then you had a string of first-round losses, early upsets, Santa Clara, East Tennessee State. And a guy of Lute's stature looked and said, all right, I got to start giving my guards a little bit more priority here. I got to start changing my style. And obviously it was done to a great effect right there. I think when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to roster, Lloyd's still figuring this thing out a little bit, and he'll basically admit that. If he were to sit there and just say, "Nope, we've got it all done. We're going to go exactly with what we keep doing," that would be a little bit of a concern. But again, he's a young coach in the grand scheme of things there, Rhino.
If we would have hired, and I say we, like you and I had anything to do with it, but if Arizona would have hired a name coach that was a head coach, a sitting head coach with a brand that you could recruit to and build, and he had learned all of these things already in a previous stop or stops, like look at what Lute Olson. By the way, do you know Lute was never an assistant coach? Did you know that? He was a head coach. Always. He had never, even at the high school level, started as an assistant coach. Lute was always a head coach. So he learned all the way back in North Dakota. Right? Yes, I'm not kidding.
Have you been sitting on this? I had no clue about that. I would have figured he would have been an assistant at some. That's amazing stuff. Go ahead, Rhino.
Never an assistant. So you think of that chair and learning how to be a head coach. It started way back at Two Harbors High School in North Dakota and built all the way to Southern California, the JC run, Iowa, right? So he had learned quite a bit. He had been a head coach for 20 years before he stepped into the Arizona role. Tommy had never been a head coach. So we knew hiring an assistant, you had to build his brand as a head coach, his stature from a recruiting standpoint. And we're still seeing that develop. Arizona had to kind of recuperate a bit from a recruiting standpoint. We're still seeing that. But I do see what Tommy has been able to build. And I think Arizona fans, we got the taste of success. We got the taste of what we've all wanted and desired to have. And I think got a little spoiled. And so this year kind of felt like a huge letdown. And I know from a recruiting standpoint, which we'll talk, it may not be firing. We may not be getting those top 20s, and these recruit names are flying in left and right. Trust the process, as the old phrase goes. I've got trust that Tommy's got the plan worked out.
Yeah, let's talk about that, and especially too, I want to talk about the point guard position here because I don't know that there's ever been somebody that has been around better college point guards than Ryan Hansen right there. I mean, you lived it at its absolute apex, but let me tell you first about the official beer of PHNX, Four Peaks. What do you think about the nickname that I came up with for the 4 U of A big men this year, Ryan Hansen, the Four Peaks? Is that just stupid?
No. It's first of all, it's very topical and perfect for this podcast. So that's your priority was absolutely checked off.
All right. The best place to take in the NFL draft on April 27th is at the Four Peaks 8th Street Pub. Register for free in the link to in the show notes in the description to take advantage of your of the specials. Must be 21 and up. Enjoy responsibly. And Tap and Bottle watch parties. Had those all year. Privileged to be endorsed by them. North Side and the downtown location. Listen, there's a lot of people, I kid you not, people would come in there and they would have Brian Jeffries and Ryan Hansen on the radio as they're watching the game in there. That's the way to do it. Check it out, Tap and Bottle. All right, point guard. Kerr Kriisa, to me, did a lot of good things here at the U of A. You look at his win-loss record, it speaks for itself, and that's generally how point guards are judged. I do believe that there was a little bit of a ceiling with Kerr, though. And again, maybe I'm just coming from seeing Damon and JT and Bibby and all them, but I think you kind of knew what Kerr was. He's going to be about a 10-5 guy, decent shooter. Boswell, to me, has another level to him, another feel to him. I'm incredibly excited to see what he can bring, especially being given the keys to this Lamborghini playing 30-plus minutes a game. I don't know what to expect, but I think we're going to like the results.
I'm definitely aligned with your view and perspective, right? So Kerr gave us a lot of great things. Led the league in assists 2 years in a row in assists per game. I mean, he was a distributor. I think his ability to set the pace for what Tommy Lloyd wanted to do with tempo and pace, a different point guard might not have been able to do that. So Arizona was able to put together Tommy's blueprint of tempo, had the right guy, at least, who was a willing passer, somebody who did not have to dominate with the dribble, would give it up early, would make those difficult long court passes, but we were willing to take the chance and the risk on those. So I think he did a lot of great things for us. But let's not hide the fact that you said it probably perfectly, the ceiling of opportunity. When you look at what guard play was doing to advance in the NCAA tournament, Arizona needed more guards around Kerr to do those things, to take those things off of his plate when the rubber met the road. You look at Noel from Kansas State, what he was able to do. Why did Florida Atlantic advance? They had dudes. They had 2 or 3 perimeter guys that could get a bucket. They were buckets. Isaiah Wong from Miami, guy could get a bucket, but you also had other players there that complemented that. So Arizona, if you look at the last 2 years of Kerr Kriisa in the backcourt, went pretty far when you had DT and Ben in that role. This last year, Kylan was developing, not there yet to really take the reins. If there might have been one criticism of the Princeton game, and I very rarely criticize coaches because I know the stress, pressure, and I'm not that guy. But golly, when you look back, maybe Kylan was better suited for that game. Were we getting more productivity out of him? Maybe the future was the now this year. And I agree with you. So all hope and best wishes to Kerr Kriisa. He was a polarizing figure here at Arizona. And I think when he looks back on his career at Arizona, I hope he's pleased with the time he spent. The fan support was there, but he was polarizing. And maybe, just maybe for both parties, the best thing happened for him to start fresh. If the transfer portal has any positives, it does afford a player the opportunity to do something like this that maybe sets a new course for both parties. And I'm, to that end, very excited about what Kylan Boswell can bring. I think his ability at the point to score at all 3 levels and be a distributor is an elevated point guard level play for us versus where Kerr was. Kerr was 3 or nothing. He wasn't 3 or layup. You know this. Kerr, very difficult finishing.
And that's what surprised me. That's what surprised me, Rhino, because I agree with you. I think Tommy Lloyd has already shown that he does an amazing job developing players. You just look at the jumps with Ben Matherin, Christian Coloco, et cetera. What surprised me about Kerr is he never developed a floater. He never developed kind of that mid-range thing where I think that he could have added a little bit of a level to it. And that just, like you said, he was 3 or bust essentially on the offensive end.
You know, you look at the pick and roll, which Tommy utilizes quite a bit. We destroyed people when it was give it up to the roll man, or when the guard defending Kerr would go underneath the screen, and that would give Kerr a chance to just step beyond the 3-point line and knock it down. But coming off that pick and roll, stopping at the free throw line and popping or hitting a runner or trying to finish in transition, I see that as Kylan Boswell now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's already shown us he has the stop and pop at 15 in his bag. He's got the come off of it as the guard comes over the top, give a little contact, step back and create space. That's an NBA type play. He's got that in his bag. The next level for him, because of his size, and I mean height, not strength, is finding ways to finish in traffic and getting to the rim and finishing at the rim. Kyrie Irving's not huge, but he's developed a skill. And I'm like putting now, way
You're
lofty
comparing him to Kyrie Irving. I like it. Ryan Hansen right now.
Wow.
April 20th.
Put it down. But to your point, I do think that Kylan's ultimate ceiling, which Arizona's ultimate ceiling at the point guard play, will be higher because of Kylan Boswell being essentially, taking over at present. But I think Kylan, and I think you may shift into this. I think Kylan has the ability to be a combo guard. I think he has the 3-point threat, the scoring threat, and the mental ability to shift back and forth. In college basketball now, it's old school for us to say point guard to shooting guard, small forward, power forward. That's old. It's way beyond that. Boswell is a perimeter guard that can get it done.
I mean, you look at it this way. I mean, like when Miles was academically ineligible, you threw in Jason Terry right there and Mike Bibby in the backcourt, and you could say that, well, Mike's the pure point guard. JT could play point. I mean, we saw that JT could play point, and sure, they were 6'1", but I don't really – honestly, I think height at the guard positions is a tad overrated in college because – let's just say that you have a Ryan Nembhard here or a Kylan Boswell. You don't see in college guys back down shooting guards on an ISO thing like a Mark Jackson or a Gary Payton used to do in the NBA. That's not really how the college game works.
No, and being able to defend your position is not dictated by how tall you are. I would say I would love for someone to back down Kylan Boswell in the post.
Yes.
I think that's advantage Boswell.
Yes.
And if let's say, because we can talk in open terms, if it were a Ryan Nembhard that were to land here, he defends his position very well. So don't get caught up in height when you look at, we're small. Holy cow, look at, again, the NCAA tournament. Florida Atlantic, one big, Euro big, by the way. So if anybody's mad at Euro bigs, let's look at Florida Atlantic, Euro big, with a lot of, relatively speaking, guards that could have been posted up but wouldn't allow themselves to be posted up.
Now, all right, Jacob, if you could pull up the stat graphic for the players returning this coming year, I want to get some Rhino's thoughts on some of these guys. So here's who you know that you have. So we talk about Kylan Boswell right there. If you were to have a Ryan Nembhard, I think that alleviates a lot of the concerns that this past year's team had because you got two guys there. You know that Nembhard can break his guy down, make life a little bit easier. Boswell as well. I think they would fit perfectly together. Again, nothing's happened yet, but I think that would make Tommy Lloyd's job a lot easier just because at the end of a game, at the end of a shot clock, you have somebody that can be that dude, and especially Ryan Nembhard has shown that he can do that. And again, I get that Tommy Lloyd's offense doesn't necessarily go like that, but there's still times in games when you need somebody to get a bucket.
There's definitely times in games, and now to say we need playmakers, we need guys that, as I've always called it, and I have a number of people that have used this. I didn't coin it. We need dudes on the perimeter. We need dudes, and Boswell's a dude. Nembhard's a dude. And what do I mean by that? Tough, gritty, play make for others, score for themselves, score at all three levels, not going to back down against a UCLA defense or a Houston defense. You need dudes that rise to the occasion, not afraid of a big shot. And that's
Miles Simon was a dude.
He was a dude. Mike Bibby was a dude. Jason Gardner, dude. Salim Stoudemire, Khalid Reeves, right? Chris Mills. You probably saw a tweet.
On
he
campus.
was in town recently, on campus. Literally modern Arizona men's basketball, the forgotten man, unfairly forgotten, one of the greats ever. But back to this year's squad, if I look at that list, right, I see promise. I see post play. I see hope there. I see length. I see size. I don't see dudes on the perimeter. I think Pelle Larsson has some mojo with him. I think he can develop more in this offseason into one of those quote-unquote dudes. Not enough dudes. I think KJ Lewis could be a dude.
Right.
But for him to be consistently relied upon night in and night out is probably unfair coming into his first year. So there are some holes, but you know this. You've talked about it. You may have even tweeted about it. Cedric Henderson commits to Arizona in June. Courtney Ramey commits to Arizona in June. Kylan Boswell reclassifies in July. So last year's roster was kind of tenuous at this point as well, and things did fall into place pretty nicely. So trust the process with Tommy on what can come.
Let's talk a little bit about Pelle Larsson. I want to get your take on this, but first, if you're somebody like Ryan Hansen, by the way, Ryan, plug your company right there because, again, it's some pretty cool stuff.
One plug, and you said it. I love to travel because I run Bon Voyage Travel here in Tucson. And I am leaving tomorrow, which is why we had to come on today. I'm flying tomorrow to Alaska to go on an Alaska cruise, and in 2 weeks I'll be in Rome, baby, on another cruise. So don't you wish you had my job, Mike?
I do. I wish every single day. But let's say that Ryan Hansen, though, is going somewhere where it's sunny. He could use Shady Rays. All right, here's the cool thing with Shady Rays. You can take on the sun with gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered for the warm weather ahead with premium polarized shades at an affordable price. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com. Promo code PHNX for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. All right. Speaking of a cool guy, Pelle Larsson. Pelle Larsson, to me, we know a few things about Pelle at this point. Pelle is a very good finisher around the hoop. Pelle is a good physical defender. His shot came around at the end. Where I would like to see a little bit another player added in addition to Pelle is I don't believe that Pelle is really a guy that is ever going to be able to come off screens and make threes like a Mike D used to do or somebody like that. And I don't know that the handle is necessarily natural there, which I think limits him to a certain degree, but he's still a really good player, obviously, to have in the rotation at 28 minutes. Am I being too simplistic? Am I right? What do you think about that?
I think you're on the right track. What we got last year from him was I think he tried to be a shooter early. Shot wasn't falling, and he fell into the trap of that dictated his offense. As the season went on and Tommy influenced him about, hey, when you take it to the rim, don't try to get fouled, score.
Right.
If you get fouled, that's awesome. And once that light bulb came on for Pelle, who's a very rugged player, he gets hit. He's kind of like, in some respects, he's like a Domas Sabonis with the Kings, where he's always getting cracked. Sometimes Sabonis does it to himself. That's another podcast for another time. Which, by the way, that's a great series. If you're not watching that series, you're missing out on something special.
Who do you like tonight?
Oh, geez. I like the Warriors. I like them at home. I think the role players will play better. I think Jordan Poole is going to play much better at home. He has to play well. However, without Draymond, that becomes a challenge. But I'll tell you, the guys that are hooping are the Kings. Holy cow, they're playing with confidence. That's a fun series. I don't think it's over by any stretch of the imagination.
I agree.
Back to Pelle Larsson. Arizona needs more consistency and well-rounded play offensively from him. His defense was off the charts. I see him being another critical piece to Arizona defensively. His handles have got to improve. If he's going to make the jump to the NBA, he's at that size right now where I think he's showing defensive versatility, which is huge. Mm-hmm. He's going to have to be able to be a knockdown shooter at that size because he could be a 3-and-D guy in the NBA. However, his handles aren't at the NBA level. They'll force him to put the ball on the deck at some point, and he struggles with that, which was some of our struggles. If you look this year, our press breaks and ability to get the ball across half court. If Pelle was involved, that was not our best option to break the press. He's got to improve in that area where Tommy's more confident and Pelle's more confident in using the dribble to break pressure and using the dribble to create offense for himself.
Right. Even if it's a straight line dribble, just to be able to have that with confidence, because the key thing I think you see with them a lot of times is the dribble is just really high. And again, when you're playing high D1 level, you played high D1, you made a 3 on Reggie. You know this, that one still made it. But, I mean, at that point, especially when you're playing the Pac-12 and you got a lot of talented perimeter guys, that's just it's just difficult right there. But he does bring a lot of really, really good things to the equation, obviously there. I want to get your take on Oumar Ballo. I'll be honest with you here. When Oumar Ballo came in here, I thought he was going to be more of a Gene Edgerson type. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, 8 to 10 minutes a game, throw some not intentionally throw some bows, but, be physical.
Maybe intentionally. Provo, Utah, I was there.
I wasn't going to bring that example up, but yes. But, a player like that, which everybody needs. But obviously I was way wrong on that. He was 15-8 this year. Does he have another step that he can make? Can he become a 18-8 guy? Are we kind of where he's at? Where do you see him falling?
That's a great question, because I think I fell prey to what did we see from him at Gonzaga, and what we saw was limited opportunities, and the assumption was limited skill set, not good enough to be a starter in the Pac-12 if he can't crack any more minutes than he was doing at Gonzaga. Shame on us for we're not the coach, right? Tommy saw much more in him. So I agree with you. I did not see that jump, especially from year 1 to year 2 at Arizona. Can he make another seismic jump like that? I think that's probably asking too much. What is he missing in his bag, right? I think he's missing some athleticism. Yeah. Is that going to change?
He's heavy-footed,
probably
for sure.
Not. Heavy-footed, right? Does he finish above the rim more often than not? Probably not. Doesn't mean that he can't be effective. We've seen guys finish at or below the rim more often than not, and be super effective. Can he develop more of the ability to knock down that push shot that he has? I don't think he's going to all of a sudden become Channing Frye, moving into knocking down threes at the NBA level. So to answer your question, I don't want to limit Oumar, because he's proven us wrong, and there's no reason why he can't do it again. And Tommy, I don't want to, limit what their ability to develop him. I just don't see a huge seismic jump. Can he get better at back to the basket moves, more versatile with both hands, really consistent at 8 to 10 feet with the push shot? Absolutely. I just don't know if I see him pick and pop at 15 to 17. I just don't know if his body type and how he moves, and it's not a pure jumper, right? It's a push shot. And hey, own the push shot, master the push shot, and we'll be thrilled if you become, super skilled at that level.
Speaking of a guy that I'd like to see make a jump is Henri Veesaar. You see, here's what Henry's got going for him. And I know a lot of people are out on Henry. You need to remember, though, that this is his first year here in the United States playing Division I hoop. But here's the things that you can't take away from him. First of all, he is huge. He's got a 7'5" wingspan. You stand up close. He's got a capacity to block shots. He is actually not a bad shooter. I mean, I know you've probably seen him in practice. He can knock it down. And I believe that he can be a guy that gives you 8, 4, and a block and a half next year. I don't think that's too much to ask, because I think he has the talent to be able to do that with a year strength and conditioning and getting better, Rhino.
Bigs take a longer time to develop. That's across the board. How many bigs do you see, come and splash in the one and done? Those are the really uber guys.
Yeah.
I think Henri Veesaar, I would have liked to have seen him utilized more.
I agree.
I think we missed maybe, some opportunities because maybe we didn't put teams away as early as we should have. Some of those early games in the Pac-12, games that should have just been done, and he would have been more – Tommy would have felt a little more comfortable to get him time or what have you, but it just takes more time with those guys. And when you couple that with, as you mentioned, the Euro change for him, moving to college basketball, that's just a different level for a high school kid playing in America, let alone a Euro. I do have high expectations for Henri Veesaar in year 2, and I've seen it in practice. I think if he's not heavy-footed, he's got bounce, he's got length. He's not 7 foot with short arms. He's got great wingspan. I think he's got a good sense for shot blocking, like you said. If Arizona missed another thing this past season, we were not great at rim protection. We had size, so we were better than most, but we weren't blocking shots Christian Koloko style. And I don't think Veesaar is going to be Koloko as a shot blocker, but let's compare the development at least of Christian Koloko. Freshman year of Koloko to where what he became in year 2 and year 3 at Arizona. I see some big jumps for Henri Veesaar, and I actually concur, if not I think Henry could be closer to 10 points and 6 rebounds versus 8 and 4 personally.
Henry is a guy that I don't dismiss as being a legitimate NBA prospect in a year or two. I think that he's got that type of ability. You know it when you see it. I mean, we've seen guys that have come through here where you're like, I'll be honest with you. I love Oumar Ballo. I don't believe in this day and age that Oumar Ballo is an NBA player. I think he's going to make a ton of money overseas, and there's
absolutely.
I would love to have his future. But Henri Veesaar is a guy to me that has that potential to possibly reach right there. All right,
I couldn't agree more.
Let me ask you this. What's the next step then for Arizona? When they've gotten into the tournament the last couple of years, you've seen that they've had some struggles, obviously, with at the guard position right there, and having a guy outside of a Ben Mathurin who could just, like you said, be that dude. What is that next step for Arizona to get past that, kind of those postseason struggles?
Yeah, Arizona's going to need more talent. There's just no doubt about it that you can have really good guys and good players and win a lot of games in college basketball. You need talent at the NCAA tournament level. And for what you and I want, and I think your viewers, they're like us, I think. They're just junkies, and they have high expectations for Arizona. Arizona has got to become a consistent second weekend in the NCAA tournament program. And you're gonna drop one here or there where you shouldn't in that first weekend. You lose in the first round, people talk about you. You get to the second weekend, people talk about you. It's a different conversation. Arizona to really get that national recognition again and be established again, like you give Tommy a break in year 1 and 2, year 3, 4, and 5, you probably don't give him as much of a break if the talent's not coming in. At least building for the future. We've got some really good opportunities here in the next, couple of weeks, maybe one next week that could change everybody's perspective of the near-term future from a talent level standpoint. But that second weekend, that's where Arizona belongs. I've seen so many, and you have seen it, so many stats run either, and no matter what the time frame is, most wins in the last 5 years, best winning percentage in the last 10 years, conference and tournament championships of the last 15 years. Arizona's on every list.
Right.
One problem. We're like the 1 or 2 teams on that list that have not made a Final Four run in that time frame. And when I was growing up, through to get the validity, right?
And when I was growing up, that was every 4 years you could basically bank on it. Going to play in the Final Four, and it's just been so long. And that's kind of the one thing. If you're trash talking with your UCLA friend or something, and they say that, it's a hard one to come back from right there. But like you said, when you're at Arizona, you have all the reasons to be able to do that. One thing that I do like that he's doing, one thing amongst many things I like that he's doing, I love the scheduling, Rhino. You guys are going to be able to call a game in Cameron next year. Then you got Alabama, you got Michigan State. I love that. And that's something that I think we took for granted with Lute, is that Lute had connections with these coaches and he utilized them to play games. Now, again, if it was Mike Krzyzewski, he wasn't going to let him just tell him, hey, play at our place and then we'll do a neutral court. I mean, there had to be respect, like with the Roy Williams with Kansas, North Carolina, et cetera. But I would love to see that out of conference scheduling that Tommy Lloyd is at least putting in here right now, Rhino.
It's another piece of what we expect in the fan base, and this players want to play in those games. And with no Maui on the schedule next year, I believe Arizona was scheduled to be back in the Las Vegas run, which is the Wooden being moved to Las Vegas. It just was not Michigan from 2 years ago, headlining with Wichita State in there, so you felt like you had some great teams. So I'm glad they bounced out of that. So it's an odd year where we're not playing in a multi-team event with the championship on the line, like the Vegas run and the Roman fight or whatever they called that, and the Maui run this past season. But playing in Palm Springs on Thanksgiving Day against Michigan State, that's must-see TV. That's what college basketball fans are waiting for. And for Arizona to be back in Durham, North Carolina at Cameron for the first time since the early 90s. I tried, as you know, and you referenced a conversation essentially that I had year in and year out with Duke, trying to get a home and home with those guys. We played them in neutral stuff, and the AD at St. John's, Mike Craig, was the director of operations at the time at Duke when we were trying to work this out, and it could never happen. So now that we've got a true home and home with some other opportunities for neutrals, I think thrown in there as well, is off the charts. And then Alabama being, a recent splash in college basketball makes all the sense in the world. Need, want, love a home game of that stature. I've done the job, so I know it's hard. I did the job for over 10 years of trying to schedule these games. So again, no fault to the program, but I sit on the court side seats and having Tennessee in McHale the game before Christmas. Come on, Mike, that was magical. That was McHale at its finest.
Right.
We need and desire and want one of those every year. And especially, dude, with UCLA saying sayonara to look at what's left now on that schedule without a major team coming in every year. It's special. That's what I love about college basketball, are those home games. So the Duke one's coming. Those other ones will come too.
Before we sign off here, do you have any preference staying in the Pac-12, Big 12? Where do you fall on that?
A little bit of a traditionalist in some way, where I want to see the conference survive. But at the same time, I have the fear that we don't want to be left holding the bag. And I just don't believe the Big Ten is done. Maybe done for today, maybe not done for the immediate future. And I don't see Arizona in that mix. I don't think they're looking at Arizona ASU from a Big Ten standpoint, but I think they're looking at other schools, namely the Oregon, Washington, Stanford possibility. When you throw in a Notre Dame, that becomes a foursome. And so I don't want to be left holding the bag. I'd rather be the team and the school that decides to break it up and leave for the pastures because it's right for us. I think from a basketball perspective, oh, Lordy, I kind of salivated a Big 12 opportunity. Holy cow, that'd be fun.
You would have a home and home at Fog Allen every single year, and it wouldn't even be built into the schedule. You have Baylor.
Look at what Jerome Tang's doing at K-State. Texas Tech's not going anywhere. Even BYU, Iowa State. I mean, heck, if it was this year, we could have Huggy Bear and Kerr Kriisa coming back to McHale with what the Big 12 is. So I'm excited. I mean, Houston, major team. That's a great add for the Big 12. Cincinnati. So from a basketball perspective, heck, with UCLA and USC gone, let's look at what's left. It's an absolute upgrade with what the Big 12 would offer from a basketball perspective, and maybe not from overall. I don't get paid enough, or I'm not smart enough. Is probably more important to be in that room to make those decisions. But when we talk about it, it's definitely intriguing, and I don't want to say worrisome, but boy, it's just, you sit back and watch it and say, oh, I wish I knew what was happening.
Right. He is the great Ryan Hansen. Rhino, can we get a back the A before you sign off?
Of course, we back the A, baby. We want to see the shuttles on campus with back the A. We want to see tweets, hashtag back the A. It's all about that. Mike Luke, no one more passionate about Arizona athletics than you, my friend.
I appreciate you as always, my guy. And you have a great rest of your summer. We'll definitely be touching base. And Bon Voyage Travel, if you need anything, check them out right there. Rhino can, they'll get you all handled right there.
All right. Take care, Mike.
All right. That's Ryan Hansen. I'm Mike Luke. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.